The mockery. The sound that echoed through the Galactic Council's crystalline observation deck wasn't quite laughter. It was something far worse. It was the harmonic convergence of a dozen different species expressing their amusement at humanity's expense, each adding their own cultural flavor of mockery to the symphony of ridicule. Captain Zara Novak stood with her hands clasped behind her back, weathered face impassive as she watched Earth's fleet drift into formation through the massive viewing portal. 23 ships in total, if you could call them ships. The Iron Will, her flagship, looked like it had been welded together in a junkyard by blind mechanics. Its hull bore scorch marks from 100 battles, patched with mismatched metal, plates that created a patchwork pattern across its surface. Rust streaked its sides like tears, and one of its engine pods sparked intermittently, sending tiny fireworks into the void. "Are those duct tape strips I see holding their wing assembly together?" chirped Zeltar, the Zarathi delegate, his insectoid features clicking in what passed for laughter among his kind. His people's ships gleamed like silver needles, perfectly aerodynamic even in the vacuum of space, their surfaces so polished they reflected starlight like mirrors. The Vorthak representative, a living crystal formation named Resonance of Victory, hummed a frequency that translated roughly to contemptuous snickering. Their electromagnetic signatures are chaotic. No harmony, no efficiency. How do they maintain structural integrity? Through the deck's transparent aluminum, the contrast was stark. The alien fleets arranged themselves in perfect geometric formations, the Zarathi in razor-sharp diamonds, the Vorthak in crystalline fractals that hurt to look at directly, and the energy-based luminar flowing like liquid light in impossible curves. Each ship was a masterpiece of engineering, representing millennia of technological advancement. Earth's fleet, by comparison, looked like it had been assembled from spare parts found in a cosmic garbage dump. "Captain Novak," came the silky voice of Ambassador Zephyros, the Luminar Collective's chosen speaker. His form shifted between blue and gold energy patterns as he spoke. "We appreciate humanity's enthusiasm for joining the Galactic Council, but surely you understand our concern. These vessels appear barely spaceworthy. Perhaps Earth would benefit from our shipbuilding assistance." The offer was wrapped in diplomatic courtesy, but Novak heard the underlying message. "Your technology is pathetic, and you're not worthy of sitting at our table." Lieutenant Kai Blackstone, barely 25 and fresh from the academy, shifted uncomfortably beside her. She could see his jaw clenching, his pilot's pride stung by the alien's casual dismissal. In the observation deck's reflection, she caught sight of Chief Engineer Oren Voss, a bear of a man whose beard couldn't hide his scowl as he listened to the aliens critique his handiwork. "Thank you for your concern," Novak replied, her voice carrying just enough edge to slice through the diplomatic pleasantries. "But our ships have served us well. They've survived everything from solar flares to asteroid fields. Sometimes the most reliable machines are the ones that have been tested by hardship." Zeltar's compound eyes glittered with amusement. "Tested by hardship or simply primitive?" A ripple of harmonious agreement passed through the assembled delegates. The Bo message was clear. Humanity was being tolerated, not welcomed. They were the backward cousins invited to the family reunion out of obligation, not respect. Novak allowed herself a small, cold smile. Let them laugh. Let them think Earth's fleet was nothing more than flying scrap metal held together by stubbornness and prayer. They had no idea what humanity was truly capable of when underestimated. "Shall we begin the integration trials?" she asked pleasantly, as if she hadn't just been systematically insulted by every major power in the galaxy. The real education was about to begin. The deception. The training arena stretched across a cubic kilometer of space, a deadly obstacle course of rotating energy barriers, gravitational wells, and floating debris fields designed to test fleet coordination and tactical precision. What the Galactic Council called an integration exercise, Captain Zara Novak recognized as an elaborate examination. One humanity was expected to fail spectacularly. "All ships maintain sloppy formations," Novak whispered into her encrypted comm channel, her voice barely audible above the bridge's ambient hum. "Remember, We're supposed to be incompetent. From the pilot's seat, Jace Meridian, a former smuggler whose criminal record had been mysteriously expunged when Earth needed, experienced spacers suppressed a grin. Copy that, Captain. Initiating Operation Bumbling Fool. The Iron Will lurched forward with what appeared to be a misfiring thruster, listing 15 degrees to starboard before overcorrecting violently to port. Behind them, the rest of Earth's fleet began their carefully choreographed dance of manufactured incompetence. The Rust Bucket, piloted by a crew of ex-pirates, spun wildly through the first energy barrier, sparks flying from what looked like damaged navigation systems. The Patchwork, crewed by former asteroid miners, veered dangerously close to a gravitational well before its engines seemed to stutter back to life, pulling it away at the last second. Navigator Quinn Torres, her fingers dancing across holographic displays, fed false telemetry to the alien observers while her real sensors mapped every energy frequency, every structural weakness in the arena's construction. Her background in military intelligence had taught her that information was the deadliest weapon, and right now she was building an arsenal. Zarathi fleet is maintaining perfect delta formation, 0.73 efficiency rating, she reported quietly to Novak. Vorthak ships are using harmonic resonance to communicate instantaneously. No communication lag. Luminar vessels are sharing processing power through quantum entanglement. Novak nodded, filing away each detail. The aliens' greatest strength, their technological perfection, was also their greatest weakness. They relied on systems, on predictability, on the universe behaving according to mathematical principles. Humans had learned long ago that the universe didn't give a damn about mathematics when survival was on the line. Iron Will, your trajectory is highly inefficient, came Zeltar's voice over the open channel, dripping with condescension. You're wasting energy with those course corrections. Perhaps you should consider automated navigation? Thanks for the tip, Novak replied, allowing just a hint of embarrassment to color her voice. Our nav computer is having some issues today. Behind her, Torres rolled her eyes and continued her real work, hacking into the arena's control systems through microscopic signal leaks in the energy barriers. Every accident brought Earth ships closer to critical system nodes, allowing her to map the entire network. The Zarathi fleet moved through the obstacles like liquid mercury, each ship perfectly synchronized with the others. Not a single wasted movement. Not a single inefficient maneuver. It was beautiful to watch and completely predictable. The Vorthak formation was equally impressive, their crystalline ships resonating with harmonic frequencies that allowed them to coordinate without any visible communication lag. They flowed around obstacles like water finding the path of least resistance. The Luminar Collective was perhaps the most alien of all, their energy-based ships shifting form as needed, becoming needles to pierce through narrow gaps or spreading into nets to catch and redirect projectiles in the combat simulations. Meanwhile, Earth's fleet stumbled through the course like drunken elephants. Ships collided with obstacles they should have easily avoided. Formations dissolved into chaos. At the first sign of resistance, weapon systems misfired or failed to activate entirely. Embarrassing, muttered Resonance of Victory, the Vorthak delegate, his crystalline form pulsing with what Torres had learned indicated amusement. Perhaps humanity needs remedial flight training before attempting integration. Jace Meridian, listening on the open channel, made a show of fighting with his controls as he accidentally fired a plasma burst that went wide of its target. In reality, he was measuring response times, cataloging defensive patterns, and noting how each alien fleet reacted to unexpected stimuli. Sorry about that, he called out, voice pitched perfectly between sheepish and frustrated. Trigger's a bit sensitive today. What the aliens didn't realize was that every malfunction, every accident, every display of human incompetence was precisely calculated. When the Patchwork seemed to lose power and drifted into the Luminar formation, forcing them to adjust their pattern, it mapped their emergency protocols. When the Rust Bucket fired its engines at the wrong moment and scattered a debris field, it revealed the Zarathi fleet's collision avoidance algorithms. The revelation, the first sign something was wrong, came when the training arena's exit portals sealed themselves with a resonant clang, that echoed through the vacuum via hull vibrations. The second sign was when weapon signatures began lighting, up across every alien vessel, energy readings spiking from standby to combat ready in perfect synchronization. "Captain," Navigator Quinn Torres said, her voice steady despite the ice in her veins, "I'm reading active targeting locks from all 3 alien fleets. This isn't a drill." Captain Zara Novak had been expecting this moment for months, ever since Earth's intelligence networks had intercepted fragments of coded transmissions between the Council worlds. The integration trials had always been a sham, a convenient way to eliminate humanity's fleet while maintaining plausible deniability. "All ships, red alert," she commanded, her voice cutting through comm channels with military precision. "Drop the act. Now." The transformation was instantaneous and terrifying. The iron will's seemingly damaged hull plating slid away like molting skin, revealing sleek armor beneath. Hidden weapon ports opened along its flanks, bristling with plasma cannons and kinetic accelerators. The ship's stuttering engines roared to full power, their earlier misfires revealed as carefully modulated thrust patterns designed to mask their true capabilities. Across Earth's fleet, the metamorphosis repeated. The rust bucket shed its corroded exterior to expose military-grade shielding. The patchwork's mismatched hull sections realigned into a unified defensive configuration. Every ship that had appeared ready for the scrapyard now revealed itself as a weapon of war. "Impossible," Seltar's voice crackled across the communication channels, his usual arrogance replaced by something approaching panic. "Human vessels are showing energy signatures 3 times their previous readings. How?" "Because you never asked the right questions," Novak interrupted, her voice broadcast on all frequencies. "You asked if our ships were advanced. You asked if they were efficient. You never asked if they were dangerous." Behind her, weapons specialist Dex Morrison, a former arms dealer whose black market connections had helped outfit Earth's secret arsenal, smiled grimly as his targeting systems locked onto the Zarathi flagship. His scarred hands moved across, holographic controls with the fluid precision of someone who had spent years matching firepower to targets. "Should I paint them, Captain?" he asked, fingers hovering over firing solutions that would cripple the alien formation in seconds. "Wait," Novak said, then activated the fleet-wide broadcast system. "Vale, you're up." Communications officer Vale Reese had been 19 when the corporate data wars made her the most wanted hacker in human space. Now, 24, and officially dead according to 3 different governments, she was about to commit the greatest act of information warfare in galactic history. "Broadcasting in 3, 2, 1, she announced, her fingers dancing across interfaces that existed more in quantum probability than physical space. Every screen in the arena, on every ship, every observation platform, every monitoring station, suddenly displayed the same horrifying images. Secret Council archives, stolen during months of careful infiltration, now played for all to see. Vorthak crystal farms where captured sentients were slowly converted into living processors. Zarathi breeding facilities where lesser species were systematically modified for slavery. Luminar absorption chambers where entire civilizations had been consumed to fuel the collective's expansion. But the worst revelation was the recording of the Council's final planning session, captured by human intelligence operatives who had died to transmit it. Ambassador Zephyros's energy form pulsed with cold light as his voice filled the arena. "The human infestation must be cauterized before it spreads. Their chaos-based thinking patterns could corrupt other species if left unchecked. The training exercise provides perfect cover for complete elimination." The silence that followed was deafening. "You knew," came a new voice over the communications array. Captain Thane of the Corvin Independent Fleet, one of the smaller species who had been pressured into attending the trials. "You knew they were going to murder us all and call it an accident." More voices joined in, a rising chorus of outrage from the dozen minor species whose fleets had been brought here as witnesses to humanity's expected humiliation. The Alterans, the Proximan Confederation, the Helix Syndicate, all of them realizing they hadn't been invited to observe an integration ceremony, but a mass execution disguised as a training accident. The evidence is fabricated. Resonance of victory. Claimed. But his harmonic patterns betrayed uncertainty. The quantum encryption on the files was unbreakable, the source codes authentic. Every technical analysis confirmed what everyone now saw with their own eyes. Is it? Novak asked, her voice carrying across the arena with terrible quiet. Then explain why your weapons are already charged. Explain why the exit portals are sealed. Explain why you've been jamming long-range communication since we arrived. The alien fleets began to move, their perfect formations wavering as individual captains started questioning orders. But the council delegates were committed now, trapped by their own arrogance and the weight of their exposed crimes. All council forces, Zeltar's voice snapped across command frequencies. Eliminate the human threat. Authorization Omega 77. All human vessels, Novak responded, her words carrying the weight of species survival. You are weapons. Free. Show them what Earth's children learned in the dark between the stars. The first shots came from the Zarathi fleet, precise calculated beams of coherent energy that should have vaporized the lead human ships. Instead, they struck adaptive shielding that bent and scattered the attacks like light through a prism. Earth's ships had been built for this moment, designed by engineers who understood that survival meant adapting to any threat. Dex Morrison's fingers found his firing controls. Captain, permission to return the favor? Granted, Novak said, her voice cold as the void. But remember, we're not here to conquer. We're here to teach them that predators can become prey. The Iron Will's main guns spoke with the voice of thunder, and the galaxy's balance of power began to shift. The real war had finally begun. The uprising, the battle that erupted in the training arena, defied every tactical manual ever written, where alien fleets moved in precise formations, calculating angles and energy expenditure with mathematical precision. Earth's ships fought, like rabid wolves, unpredictable, vicious, and utterly without regard for conventional combat doctrine. Strike Team leader Rex Ironwood, a former colonial marine whose face bore scars from the Titan mining wars, commanded the assault wing from the bridge of the Sledgehammer. His ship was a converted asteroid hauler, built for ramming through debris fields, and he intended to use it exactly as designed. All hammer units initiate Berserker Protocol, he growled into his comm, watching as 3 Zarathi interceptors moved to flank his position. Show these bugs what a real predator looks like. The Sledgehammer didn't dodge the incoming fire. It flew straight into it, ablative armor boiling away under energy beams while its reinforced prow aimed directly at the lead Zarathi ship. The alien pilot, trained in elegant maneuvering and calculated risks, couldn't comprehend what he was seeing. Ships weren't supposed to use themselves as projectiles. The collision sent shock waves through both vessels, but only one had been built to survive it. The Zarathi ship crumpled like expensive foil while the Sledgehammer carved through its hull and emerged on the other side, trailing debris and molten metal. Impact successful, Rex reported with grim satisfaction. Who's next? Across the battlefield, Tactical Officer Nova Sterling orchestrated the chaos from the command center of the chessmaster, her brilliant mind turning disorder into weapon. She had graduated top of her class from the Naval War College before Earth's military was disbanded under council pressure, but her professors had never taught tactics like these. Wraith Squadron, execute Ghost Dance maneuver, she commanded, watching as 6 human fighters suddenly cut their engines and went completely dark, drifting like space debris. The Vorthak formation, relying on harmonic sensors to track moving targets, lost them completely. Phoenix Wing, you're clear for Lazarus Strike. From dead space, the human fighters suddenly blazed back to life, engines roaring as they materialized inside the Vorthak formation like resurrection itself. Their weapons fired at point-blank range, shattering crystalline hulls with kinetic rounds specifically designed to disrupt harmonic resonance. The aliens reeled in confusion. How could ships exist in a state between dead and alive? How could fighters coordinate without active sensors? They didn't understand that human pilots had learned to fight in the asteroid fields of Sol, where electronic warfare made instruments unreliable, and survival depended on instinct. Captain Novak, came Captain Thane's voice over the general. Frequency, The Corvin fleet is moving to support your starboard flank. Whatever you did to those council bastards, we want in on it. The smaller species weren't just watching anymore, they were choosing sides. The Alteran light cruisers broke formation and began harassing Luminar energy collectors, their weak weapons proving surprisingly effective at disrupting the collective's quantum coherence. The Proximan mining ships built for dangerous work in asteroid fields proved unexpectedly adept at ramming through enemy formations. But the Council forces weren't helpless. The Luminar collective began to adapt, their energy forms flowing together into massive constructs that could absorb and redirect human kinetic attacks. The Vorthak ships started resonating in new frequencies, trying to jam human communications. The Zarathi deployed hunter-killer drones by the thousands, each one a masterpiece of miniaturized death. "Nova, I need solutions," Captain Novak said, tersely as explosions lit up the Iron Will shields. "They're adapting faster than we can improvise." Nova Sterling's mind raced through possibilities, her tactical displays showing force distributions and probability matrices. Then she smiled, the expression of someone who had just seen checkmate in 12 moves. "Rex, how much hull integrity can the Hammer Squadron sacrifice?" she asked. "All of it if the cause is right," came the immediate reply. "Perfect, all. Ships, prepare for Operation Entropy. We're going to teach these perfect predators what happens when chaos reaches critical mass." What followed wasn't battle. It was controlled demolition of the concept of warfare itself. Human ships began, deliberately overloading their own systems, turning power cores into improvised weapons that detonated in chain reactions. The patchwork flew itself into the arena's central energy distributor, triggering a cascade failure that turned the entire training ground into a storm of electromagnetic interference. In the chaos, human fighters swarmed through disabled alien formations like piranha through a school of ornamental fish. The Corvin and Alteran ships, freed from the constraints of honorable combat, joined the frenzy with savage enthusiasm. The Zarathi flagship, Perfect Symmetry, found itself surrounded by human vessels that ignored its weapons and simply began physically tearing it apart with industrial manipulator arms. Rex Ironwood's voice cut through the din. "You want to see? Primitive. This is how humans break things we can't kill cleanly." The Vorthak Mother Crystal Eternal Resonance tried to retreat, but found its escape route blocked by the sledgehammer, now more molten metal than ship, but still flying on pure, stubborn determination. Nova Sterling had calculated the intercept perfectly, trapping the massive vessel between human forces and the arena's collapsing superstructure. As the tide turned decisively against them, Ambassador Zephyros made one final, desperate play. The Luminar collective began pouring all their energy into a single, massive construct, a weapon of pure force that could theoretically sterilize the entire arena. "They're building a Nova bomb," Vale Reese reported, her hacking tools struggling against quantum-encrypted Luminar systems. "I can't stop it remotely. Someone needs to get close enough for a direct intervention." "That's a suicide run," Nova observed clinically. "Then it's a good thing humans specialize in those," Captain Novak replied, turning the Iron Will toward the growing energy maelstrom. "All ships, continue the assault. Don't let our sacrifice be wasted." But before she could complete her final charge, a new voice crackled across all frequencies. Not human, not council, but something else entirely. "This is Fleet Admiral Korath of the Outer Rim Coalition. Council forces, you are ordered to stand down immediately." Through the chaos and fire, massive ships began emerging from hyperspace, vessels that dwarfed even the largest council dreadnoughts. The cavalry had arrived, but they weren't human. The revolution was spreading. The New Order. 3 weeks after the Battle of the Training Arena, Captain Zara Novak stood in what had once been the Galactic Council's most sacred chamber. The crystalline walls still bore scorch marks from the fighting, and the air recyclers couldn't quite eliminate the smell of burned alien alloys. Around the massive circular table where the Council had once decreed the fate of worlds, representatives of 47 different species sat in heated discussion. The revolution had spread faster than anyone could have predicted. Within days of Vale Reese's broadcast exposing the Council's crimes, 17 star systems had declared independence. Within a week, the number had grown to 63. Now entire sectors were in open revolt, and the old galactic order was collapsing like a house of cards in a hurricane. The Vorthak High Resonance is offering reparations for the Crystal Farm. Atrocities, announced diplomat Sage Crawford, a former corporate negotiator whose silver tongue had convinced 3 separate alien governments to switch sides during the rebellion. She scrolled through reports on her data tablet, her expression carefully neutral. They claim the conversion programs were implemented by rogue elements without official sanction. Rex Ironwood, still wearing his scarred battle armor, snorted in disgust. Rogue elements, that's what they all say now that their fleets are burning wrecks floating in space. Admiral Flint Hawthorne, Novak's superior and the architect of Earth's hidden military buildup, leaned back in his chair. The old space dog's weathered face showed every one of his 60 years, earned in battles from the Martian Independence War to the corporate consolidation. The question isn't what they're offering now, he said quietly. The question is what we do with victory. That was the crux of it, wasn't it? They had won. Not just the battle, but the war. The Council's authority was shattered. Their fleets, scattered or destroyed, their member species either in full retreat or begging for mercy. The Outer Rim Coalition, led by Fleet Admiral Korath's mysterious armada, had proven to be an alliance of exiled races and displaced populations who had been waiting decades for someone to bloody the Council's nose. But victory brought its own problems. 17 different species are asking us to establish permanent naval bases in their systems, Nova Sterling reported from her position at the tactical displays. Her brilliant mind was now focused on the logistics of liberation rather than the mathematics of destruction. The Helix Syndicate wants us to administer their entire judicial system. 3 different mining consortiums are offering exclusive trade agreements. They want us to become the new council, Novak observed, and the room fell silent. It would have been easy. Earth's fleet, though battered, remained the most effective military force in known space. Their unconventional tactics had proven superior to any traditional doctrine. More importantly, they had credibility. They were the species that had stood up to tyranny and won. The Alterans have a saying, Captain Thane interjected, his translator rendering his species' clicking language into standard galactic. Power shared is power multiplied. Power hoarded is power corrupted. Sage Crawford nodded thoughtfully. We could establish a confederation model, voluntary association, mutual defense pacts, but no central authority with the power to dictate terms to member worlds. And when the next crisis comes? Rex asked bluntly. When some new threat emerges and everyone wants Earth to solve it for them? How long before we become what we just finished destroying? The debate continued for hours, touching on everything from trade regulations to military command structures. Some argued for a hands-off approach. Let the galaxy sort itself out while Earth focused on rebuilding. Others pushed for active leadership, establishing humanity as the guardian of galactic freedom. Finally, Admiral Hawthorne stood up, his presence commanding immediate attention. I've been fighting wars for 40 years, he said slowly, and I've learned something that every conqueror in history forgot. The moment you start thinking you know what's best for other people, you've already lost your soul. He looked around the room, meeting each person's eyes in turn. We didn't fight the Council because we wanted to rule the galaxy. We fought them because they wouldn't let us live, free. The moment we start making decisions for species who didn't ask for our help, we become them. So what do you propose? Nova asked. We go home, Hawthorne said simply. We help anyone who asks for help. We trade with anyone who wants to trade. We defend anyone who's attacked by bullies. But we don't rule, and we don't conquer, and we sure as hell don't decide what's best for people who can think for themselves. The Council territories will fragment, Sage warned. There'll be chaos, wars, probably genocide in some sectors. Maybe, Novak agreed, but that's their choice to make. We can offer alternatives, provide assistance, even intervene when asked. But we can't force peace at gunpoint. That's just another form of tyranny. Vale Reese, who had been quietly monitoring communications from across the galaxy, looked up from her quantum interfaces. I'm getting reports that the Zerathi are restructuring their government. The insectoid castes are establishing some kind of democratic council. The Vorthak are dissolving the high resonance and letting individual crystal cities govern themselves. See? Rex said with grim satisfaction. Sometimes you have to break something completely before people remember how to fix it properly. The meeting continued deep into the station's artificial night cycle, hammering out the framework for what would become known as the Free Worlds Compact. Not a government, but a voluntary association dedicated to mutual aid and the protection of smaller species from larger predators. As the delegates finally began to disperse, Novak found herself alone with Admiral Hawthorne on the observation deck, watching Earth's battered fleet conduct repairs in the space around the former council station. "Think it'll work?" she asked. Hawthorne smiled, the expression transforming his weathered features. "Ask me in 50 years, but I'll tell you this much. For the first time since I put on a uniform, I'm not ashamed of what we've built." Outside the viewport, human ships worked alongside Corvan engineering vessels, Alteran supply transports, and even a few reformed Zerathi technical craft. Former enemies sharing tools and expertise, learning from each other rather than conquering each other. It wasn't perfect. There would be setbacks, conflicts, and probably more wars before the galaxy found its new equilibrium. But for now, for this moment, there was something that hadn't existed in living memory. Hope. "You know what the best part is?" Novak said, watching a human welding crew work alongside insectoid engineers to repair a Proximan freighter. "We're not special anymore. We're just another species trying to figure out how to live with our neighbors. And that," Admiral Hawthorne replied, "is exactly how it should be." The age of empires was over. The age of cooperation had begun. And in the vast darkness between the stars, humanity's scrapyard fleet continued its patrol, not as conquerors, but as guardians of a galaxy finally free to choose its own destiny.